Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stormkeep. My name is Eduardo. With me today, I have,
Hey guys, it's Santi.
And it's Paul here.
and today we have a nice video for you. We are going to discuss the new battle tactics and the new system. And I hope that you will enjoy it and get some tips from it.
Before we start the video, I'd like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this episode, Mind Taker Minis, a community-focused shop in Vancouver, Washington. They provide space for local clubs and groups for wargaming and RPGs alike. They carry modeling supplies, terrain, dice, and have a sizable collection of 40k, Age of Sigmar, and Warhammer Fantasy in stock. In addition to reselling Warhammer, they will also buy your unused miniatures. If you've got a big pile of shame in the closet, you can turn it into cash or trade it in for store credit. Visit mindtaker.org and use code STORMKEEP5 to get 5% off your next online order. Thank you to Mindtaker Minis for sponsoring this episode, and now on to the show. So we're going to be talking about battle tactics today, because the new season of Age of Sigmar Match Play has completely changed how battle tactics function. They are still a secondary scoring system that requires you to put units in certain places and kill certain things at certain times. But the difference here, instead of having all of them available to you and you pick which one you want to do at the start of your turn, what happens is you actually pick 2 battle tactic cards as part of your list construction. And then if you score the condition on one of those cards, you can score it on your turn. Nice and simple. Instead of having to score 5 battle tactics over 5 rounds, you need to score 6 battle tactics over 5 rounds, but it's 6 battle tactics split across 2 cards. And you can score 1 off each card. So technically, you only need 3 rounds in order to max score your battle tactics.
And here, do we know precisely if you have to score them or you just can?
So that's a great question. That comes up all the time. The current theory is that yes, you have to score them. It doesn't seem like it's optional. There's nothing to suggest that it's optional, because it says if you meet the condition, you score that. So we've seen some tournaments. TOs around the country and around Europe are starting to say yes, you have to. I haven't really seen any major events yet that claim it's optional. And all the official Games Workshop events that have happened so far, like GW Tacoma Open, that's happening soon, they say you have to score it. So it might be a little vague. I am leaning currently towards assuming that you have to score battle tactics, because if you can hold on to them, oh man, that's gonna really change things up. It gets a lot more complicated if you don't have to. So
Yeah, I think there's only one way where you can like pseudo bank them. There's a few tactics I can think off the top of my head that you can score the affray and strike in the same turn, and then you would bank the strike because you can't score 2 from the same card. So you would just complete that strike next turn.
yeah, something like I think it's Master the Paths. You have to kill an enemy hero at some point during the battle. This doesn't matter when you do it. So if you can hold on to that until turn 3, that way you can hold on to the underdog bonus, which is that's a good segue into the next point here. So the underdog bonuses on each battle plan, they can be very, very powerful. They can really swing the game. There's some battle plans where the underdog can choose objectives and give every unit on that objective strike last, which can really swing the game. It can take you from a close game into like I've just lost everything in combat kind of situation. There's just really powerful underdog bonuses, in addition to just getting the extra command point. So controlling underdog is more important this season than ever before. So the way we look at it is that the player going first, well, they get easy primary scoring. You know, most battle plans, they'll require you to hold 1 objective, hold 2 objectives, hold more objectives, or some variation of that. Sometimes you have to hold a pair of objectives, or they usually require holding more objectives than your opponent to get the last 2 victory points each turn. So the player going first gets to do that pretty easily, right? They don't have to commit anything. They don't have to leave their territory usually. Or if they do, it's just to, score the thing just outside their territory. It's very easy to score the most points if you go first. However, the player going second can control who gets underdog, because no matter how much your opponent scores, the player going second can always choose to just score less, and that way they get the underdog bonus. And if you get the underdog bonus, that can be very, very useful, and it can really make your opponent's next turn a lot weaker.
Yeah, and my question was before, because you could do, the opponent can go first, and they can go and score 20 points or something. And you can go second and force yourself to score less than, to be under him by 11 points. Then, if you take the double, you are not you won't have any downgrades.
Yes. I think it's a bad idea to rush your tactics. I think scoring all of your tactics as fast as possible is not the best play. Sometimes it could be, like, let's say you're looking at a scenario where you just want to get a very fast, aggressive lead. You know, you want to get all your tactics out of the way because your plan is to throw your army away, basically. You're going to try to kill as much as you can on the way down, make it hard for your opponent. I don't think Stormcast play that very well, personally. I don't think that's a play style we're suited for, but maybe something like Soulblight or Ironjaws or Khorne or Seraphon, like something that can be very aggressive, very fast, lots of melee, and then has recursion behind it. Maybe Skaven might fit into that play style. But since
Flesh Eaters fit it very well.
Yes, Flesh Eaters love that playstyle. They throw away their army and then they resurrect half of it. Since you mentioned the double, Eduardo, it is worth mentioning that if you take a double turn, you cannot score any tactics off any of your cards. So when you combine that with the idea that you don't want to score your tactics as early as possible because you want to make sure underdog doesn't cause a blowout, you'll usually have people not scoring tactics round 1, and then scoring some tactics round 2 and 3, and then finishing them off in rounds 3, 4, 5. That's usually how games go these days. And if you take a double turn round 2 into 3, that means you had to have scored your tactic early, right? So it's kind of like this. There's a little balancing act. If you want a double turn later in the game, you do want to score your tactics early. And if you're intending on double turning, well, you're going to give the opponent underdog for the rest of the game when you take a double turn anyway. So, you know, depending on the battle plan, maybe the underdog's not so strong on that one. Like maybe you're playing on life roots, which is it doesn't give any kind of combat advantage, and if units are wiped out, it doesn't really do anything. It really depends on the situation.
I think that's the really important thing to emphasize. The biggest change that I think we're seeing from last season is how each tactic card and each battle plan is incredibly situational, and you won't play the same in one battle plan as you will in the next. Like with the life roots example, that battle plan can seem the underdog bonus can seem very middling, but if you're fighting an army with insane recursion and they're getting even more recursion by being underdog, then it can just be a wash.
Yeah, or let's say you're playing on Roiling Roots, where the underdog can pick a pair of objectives and give every unit strike last. Let's say you're playing a Lord Celestant with Concussors, and you're trying to rely on a strike first combo to go off, but you had to land on the objective for, you know, strategic reasons. All of a sudden, if you have strike last, your strike first combo doesn't work, and you're going to lose the game if you get charged.
Yep. So only because of that, we brought this of the double turn here in the battle tactics, because you can choose, well, not actively choose not to score them, but you can choose to delay the conditions for you to score them and play with this sort of stuff of the double turn and being the underdog.
Yeah, overall, in terms of complexity, it feels more complicated than it did before, but the complexity has been shifted into, like, throughout the whole game, rather than it becoming, how would I describe the old system? It felt like a mechanical thing. Like, eventually you just get good at doing, okay, I'm going to do, you know, take their land turn 1, take the flanks round 2, and it just became like muscle memory. Whereas this new system is way more complex in how it interacts, because you're trying to score your tactics, you're trying to score your opponent's tactics, you're trying to figure out when the right time to do them is going to be, and it feels kind of overwhelming at times. So we put this slide together because people are really lost. You look at these 6 cards and you're like, well, I have no idea how I'm supposed to pick these. I don't know which is the best, and I have to pick these before I go to any game, right? They're part of list building now, so how do I actually do that? And we've put together this little guide here. So we'll start with, you know, based on where you think you are as a player, you can try to fall into one of these 4 categories. So for beginners, I think the battle tactics system is just incredibly complex, and it's very easy to get overwhelmed when you look at it the first time. So I would either just roll 2 dice, and then those are your 2 cards for the game. And, you know, if you score them, you don't, whatever. Just try to look at the first 2 on them and try to score those. And that's it. Don't even worry about it. Or you can just pick 2 you like. You know, just maybe the name is cool. Maybe it has some fun art on it. Just the point is, don't get stuck with decision paralysis. Just get through it. Pick some cards. Get playing. You'll learn more by playing the game than you will by reading the cards. So try to score as many as you can, as fast as you can. Don't worry about this underdog thing. It's all too complicated, right? Just see what happens. Lose if, like, it's not a big deal to lose. You'll learn more from losing a game than you will reading the cards.
Yeah, and I would even recommend them not to play with battle tactics. Just pick the 2 cards, play your game, and at the end think a little bit about, oh, I could have done this. I could have scored that. So if you're really a beginner, I think that you will be getting a lot from the battle plans themselves. And you can ignore for your first games the battle tactics. Just think about them afterwards.
Yeah, one thing I did in my first game this season is I did kind of the opposite. I picked 2 cards, tried to score them as well as possible, lost, and then I learned what I could have done better to score those cards in a future game. Like, did I put a unit too far out in the open? Did I depend way too much on run rolls or a spell cast? And then I learned from that, okay, maybe next time I play, I don't do this.
Yeah, I think a big thing about the battle tactics, they're not going to turn a losing game into a winning game. That's just not a thing. Like if you're 30 points behind, you're not going to make that up with your battle tactics, even though you technically could. You're just going to be so far behind strategically that it's not going to be possible to do that. What battle tactics really do right now is they take a close game, like between two reasonably matched opponents, and they are the tiebreaker in that scenario. So if you're a new player, don't worry about it. Just play the game and try not to get too anxious about it. Don't feel overwhelmed. There's a lot to this game. Just run with it.
It is very possible to not score any tactics and still win if
Very
you
much so.
prevent your opponent from scoring theirs, or if you just start off with a really, really good lead and take a double at a perfect time and table your opponent. You didn't have to worry about battle tactics in the first place.
Hopefully, events will not be using victory points as a tiebreaker anymore. I really hate that system because I think what matters is just winning the game. Whether you win the game by 1 point or you win the game by 80 points or anything in between. A win is a win in my book, So I hope they don't use the victory points earned in a battle plan as the tiebreakers.
The new document that Games Workshop released, I don't know if you guys checked it with GHP. It had the ruling system for tie breaks, and it said that it's going to be decided by major and minor victories. So if you beat your opponent by more than 5 points, that is a high score that you can get. So it might help a little bit with this regard.
So once you're past the beginner stage and you're looking, you've played a couple games, you're starting to figure out like, oh, this card worked for me, this card didn't. Maybe there's some units that you really like that just don't gel with the cards that you want to pick. I would say the next step is to move on to picking units you like and then picking 2 cards that you like. The 2 best cards that you think you can score. Right? So we've gone from randomizing the cards to just picking them based on like your first impression. Don't worry if it's the best, just pick it, right? Like you can make it good later. Make it happen first and then make it good later. And you can make adjustments to unit choices. Play more games. You can say, oh, well, let's say I picked Scouting Force and, I had a bunch of Storm Drakes and a Star Drake and none of these units can get the Scouting keyword. So, okay, well, maybe I'll adjust that. Maybe I'll either change out Scouting Force or maybe I will swap out the Star Drake and Storm Drakes. Maybe I'll put in a bunch of Liberators and Stormstrike Paladors to offset that. I think the goal here should be to try to reliably score the Affray and Strike on each card, which are the first 2 stages, and try to think about when it would be best to score each one. Like, try to start thinking about it in terms of a 5-round game. Maybe it's not the best idea to score them as fast as possible.
Yeah, I think the intermediate stage is where you won't necessarily start picking units based on your tactics, but this is the part where you're going to start picking tactics based on the army you play the most. Certain armies perform certain tactics considerably better than others. So here you might find yourself a little more limited in tactics that you want. Some armies don't have much infantry or cavalry like the Sons of Behemoth, so you definitely won't be taking Scouting Force. But you're going to have to start learning which tactics you can score with your army before you get into the units.
And they also interact. Some of them interact badly with your rules, as we are going to see. Scouting Force is not good for Stormcast, not only because we don't want to take cheap cavalry that goes around and do tactics or infantry, but also because you cannot have your units in the sky in the heavens when you pick them to be scouts. So they might interact negatively with your battle traits. So that is another reason that you can start thinking about these battle tactics, or why did you pick or don't pick some of them?
And moving on from there, a more advanced player might start picking units with battle tactics in mind, right? We talked about scouts, but there's other things to consider. Like, let's say you're trying to score Master the Paths, and the last one there requires units to be in 3 corners of the battlefield. One of those units can be set up. So maybe you bring something like a Questor Soulsworn unit, which can teleport itself guaranteed. Maybe you include the Stormreach Portal in your list that can teleport a unit guaranteed. No dice roll teleports are very good for that tactic. Or let's say you pick Wrathful Cycles and you're trying to score the second part, which requires fighting with half your units. Well, if half your units are things like Knight Judicators and Knight Relictors and Knight Arcanums and Long Strikes, these units do not want to get into combat. So maybe consider picking a different tactic or picking different units. Another thing to consider at this stage is how many drops your list is going to be. Because if you are going to be able to control Underdog, well, that makes tactics like Wrathful Cycle a lot easier. If you have control of going first or second, that can influence your battle tactic choice. And then another point to consider here, if you're playing at an event, like there's a 3-game tournament coming up, or a 5-game, or you're one of those Giga Chad gamers going to LVO and there's 8 games in a row, then you need to consider which battle plans are going to be in play, because that could affect your choice. Territories and objective locations are all battle plan dependent. Some tactic cards are going to be easier on some battle plans than others. And the goal at this stage, I think, is to, previously we were saying try to score, like you're going to be shooting to score the first 2 stages on each card. I think the goal at this stage is you will score them every single game, and then you should be trying to make an attempt for the last one, the domination.
Which is hard.
Yes, the domination ones are significantly harder than the rest. But I think that is where advanced players need to go. I think eventually, by the end of this season, the best players are going to be scoring 6 of 6 battle tactics, and I would say 80% of their games. Win or lose, they're going to be scoring all 6.
Yeah, we will get used to them.
And then the expert players, not only are they picking units with battle tactics in mind, they're going to pick units based on which battle tactics their opponents are going to pick. So let's say you start considering, well, if people are picking Master the Paths and they're trying to pick, multiple chaff units that they can throw out into corners, maybe I pick a fast teleporting unit that can shoot these units down. Maybe if you know your opponents are picking Intercept and Recover, you might pick a small hero unit that you can teleport into a corner to deny them a treasure. Or you can pick a very tough unit like Reinforced Ardboys, and then good luck killing that. Like that's a tough unit to shift. All of these things start to get considered at the expert stage, we're calling. The goal here, you will score strike and a fray in every game, and you will score domination in most of your game. And the side goal, I think, is trying to stop your opponent from scoring domination. That one, I think you can pretty reliably try to interact with the domination. It's really hard to deny a phrase. It's like almost impossible to deny a phrase. They're very easy to pick up. But denying a strike, that could be a game-winning move as well.
Yeah, something happened weird in a game that I played. My opponent went and take the center objective with a chaff unit, and I countercharged the chaff unit and I killed it. So he didn't take an objective in his first turn. And then I had an aggressive army, and I went and tagged him into his deployment, and he never took an objective. So I could never score my battle tactic, because he never had an objective.
Yeah, that's the kind of play you make at the top level.
Yeah.
And sometimes denying an affray it's not entirely possible. You can delay it quite a bit. I played a game against Blades of Corn, and one of my tactics, the affray, was to kill a hero, and all he had was 4 Bloodthirsters. So killing a hero was not a turn 1 or turn 2 thing to do.
Yeah.
It took a while, especially with how he played, and I only scored at battle round 4. Needless to say, I did not win that game.
Yeah. One last thing to consider is maybe you feed your opponent easy tactics. Maybe we like, if a lot of people are playing Master the Paths or Intercept and Recover, and we're doing this recycling strat with a Knight Relictor, and we're just giving up the Knight Relictor afterwards, maybe we want to force our opponent to score a tactic. That way we have control of Underdog, and we can still score our tactics later. Maybe that allows us to get below enough in points that we can take a double turn with no penalty.
Yeah, the ceiling for skill it's gone higher.
Yes,
for sure.
And it's not mechanical skill. It's not like repetition.
No.
It's not It's not a muscle memory thing anymore. It is
Technical.
It's reactive and proactive simultaneously, but it's very, very difficult. But I think the best players will definitely make themselves stand out. And of course, it wouldn't be a Stormkeep video if we didn't have rankings of things. People love rankings. It's rank slop. That's the YouTube meta, so that's what we're going for. No, just kidding. We rank stuff. We like ranking stuff. It helps us categorize things, and we've always had this match play ranking system that we've used for battle tactics in the past, and it turns out it just works perfectly with these cards. So what we're going to try to assume is that you're going to try to score all 6 battle tactics. That is the goal. Like, that is the ultimate goal. If you are trying to score maybe 1 or 2, then these rankings will not apply, right? Because we're just looking at holistically the top level play. We're trying to figure out how can we most reliably score the most victory points. So an S tier battle tactic card is like you'll score all 3 reliably every single game. Like, there's almost no dice rolls that can screw it up. It's like a 95% certainty that you're going to score them. A tier is maybe 80% that you'll score the last one. Like, they're pretty good. You know, there might be just like something just shy of making it S tier. Like, maybe it's too much of an overextension to do it early. Maybe there's some kind of snag in the plan. A B tier tactic is pretty easy to score, but it's just not as easy as an A tier. And, you know, this all scales down to F tier, which is like, it's too niche. You're never going to score it. Or there's like some huge dice roll required, or it's just bad. Like, don't pick it. Let's take a look at tactic card number 1, Master the Paths. So the Affray here is to destroy an enemy hero. The Strike is to have more friendly units in neutral territory than enemy units. And then the second part of that, if there's no neutral territory, because some battle plans are just split across the middle, then there are no enemy units within friendly territory. And the Domination is you have to have a unit in 3 different corners of the battlefield. Only one of those units can be set up, and only one of those corners can be in friendly territory. So on first reading, this one seemed really like a lot worse than it actually is, because you generally don't want to kill heroes early on, so it could be very difficult to kill a support hero sitting in the back, and that could make the Affray very difficult. And then the Strike could also be quite difficult, especially for an army like Stormcast. If you're running a lot of reinforced units, then this gets much more difficult, especially if, because all your opponent has to do is have 1 unit in your territory. If you're playing on one of those split maps, they could, you know, translocate into a corner and deny it. There's all sorts of counterplay to that. So I think that's the hardest part. But the last part, it took us some time to figure out that this is actually not that hard for Stormcast to do. For most armies, getting a unit into 3 different corners of the battlefield is quite the feat, because that means those units aren't doing anything useful for multiple turns. But for Stormcast in particular, well, we have, it says 1 corner can be in your territory, so great. We can just stick like a Knight Arcanum or something in there. He can just hang around. He's not usually on the front line, so okay, he just runs back there. And then we can set up 1 unit, so cool. Out into the Stormreach portal you go, or out of reserves, or even Heaven Sent, the unit that you revive, could be the one that scores the tactic. So all that's left is 1 unit walking into the corner. And since we use prosecutors and cavalry, and we tend to play the flanks more so than other armies because of our mobility, this actually ends up being, I think, the easiest domination tactic for us to score.
Yeah, I agree. The hardest part, ironically, it's to kill the hero. Because there are some armies in which this part is going to be hard. They might not have easy heroes to kill.
Yeah.
They might not bring heroes that want to be in combat. They can take them away. But once you get through this, actually we have a better time than other armies into achieving the second and the third tactic. Yeah, that is why we think that it might be A.
The main thing that I dislike about Master of the Paths is the lack of control you have in whether or not you can score a tactic. And what I mean by that is that how you do in this in these battle tactics depends on your opponent's army completely. At least for the Affray and the Strike. If you fight an army that has heroes that are either very difficult to kill or that are going to stay away from you as much as possible, it's going to make Affray incredibly difficult. And for Strike, as Stormcast, there are many matchups where we are completely outnumbered. So having more friendly units than enemy units in neutral territory can be very difficult if you're fighting an army like Skaven that are running many Clan Rats, or you're fighting Flesh Eater Courts or Night Haunt. You have to do a lot more legwork just to get Strike. So yeah, ironically, Domination is, in many games, going to be the easiest one for you to score. But you have to get through those 2 hard ones first.
Yeah, so the hero part, I actually don't mind that it's hard, because as long as you kill a hero in the first 3 turns, you can set up a round 4 Strike into a round 5 Domination pretty easily with this card. I thought killing a hero would be a big downside, And the other card I was using instead of this one for the most part was Intercept and Recover. And I found most people just put the treasures on their little heroes anyway. So I was thinking to myself, well, why am I letting my opponent choose which heroes I want to kill? And I have to kill up to 3 of them usually. Why can't I just kill one hero at any point during the game and not limit my double turns in any way, which we'll talk about when we talk about Intercept and Recover. And it was like, once you compare it in that way, it's like, oh, well, this is just easier. This is strictly easier than Intercept and Recover.
And it also gives you a tactical advantage because you can, if you are threatening their heroes constantly, because we are an army that can threaten any piece on the board, because we have teleportations, high mobility, and all of this stuff, you can threaten the opponent constantly and you can make him take the wrong decisions. So I have found that this tactic has helped me in that regard because they end up taking the wizards away from the buffs. They take on putting their hammers in danger from a charge because they are trying to protect their heroes. So I think there is also tactical reasons to pick this battle tactic, and that is why I like it with Stormcast.
Yeah. So I think you're right, Santi, that it does depend on your opponent. But I think what happens, just because of how Stormcast play, the counterplay to this card makes the game harder for your opponent, right? So if they're trying to stop you from killing a hero, they're going to do things that are not good plays. Because what Stormcast want to be doing from a strategic look at the battlefield, not a tactical one for battle tactics, just strategically, the way Stormcast play is we want to kill the enemy hammer units. Anything that can do significant damage, that's what we want to be destroying. And hero doesn't usually fall on that list. Sometimes it does, right? Like sometimes you play four Bloodthirsters and you're like, oh, cool, I'm just getting my tactics this game. Like, no problem, right? I will kill them eventually. It's going to happen. But let's say you're playing against an army like Stormcast, which has small support heroes in the back, or like Gits or Ironjaws, or all these other armies that have like these little heroes that they can hide away. Those heroes, if they are playing too defensively, like you said, Eduardo, they're going to fall out of range of buffs, they're going to fall into bad positions, or they're going to have to hold their hammers back in order to keep their buffs. Because unlike most armies, Stormcast don't really need to buff stuff. Like, I mentioned this in our Battlezone review, our Spell Lore doesn't give us buffs. And some people say that makes it a bad spell lore, but the way I view it is we don't need spells to do optimal stuff. Like, our units are as good as they are whether we cast spells or not. Like, our heroes don't really change anything for us numerically. Right? The Night Relictor might reduce wards, but it's not like we're casting a +1 to wound buff that we really need to go off. Like, no, our units just do stuff, and they're good at it. But other armies need those buffs, right? If they want to be efficient, they want to get their points worth, they have to move their heroes up with their hammers, and they have to move their hammers up in order to trade. And yeah, it creates opportunities. Either people misplay or people play into it. And either way, it works for our overall battle plan. Like, you're either going to win on strategy or you're going to win on tactics.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a few armies who are going to suffer a lot because of Master of the Paths. Mainly the Death armies who want their heroes close to everything to just give out those auras and buffs. So yeah, I can think of how the main Death army I play would be very negatively affected by someone trying to kill a hero. I can't just throw a Crypt Haunter and 6 Cryptors at something.
Oh yeah,
because it's a huge risk, especially since the Crypt Haunter is not a tanky piece.
No.
I think that the right call would be to play normally and just let the opponent take the tactic.
I think so. Yeah, like strategically, that's what matters more. Is like, yeah, because the strike is the hard part. You could potentially deny the strike on this card. It's going to be very hard to deny the affray, and you're probably going to put yourself in a really bad position to deny it. Yeah, overall, I think this is an A-tier card. I think this is one of the 2 best cards in this whole set, at least from a Stormcast perspective. It could definitely be different for other armies. I can see the domination being very difficult for other armies that don't have anywhere close to the amount of teleports. Like, even 1 teleport makes the domination easier, but not, if it's a dice roll teleport, like a spell or a prayer or something, yeah, I would not hope for this.
Yeah, armies without having the capacity to pick the right targets anytime will have a harder time for this in this one.
Let's take a look at card number 2, Restless Energy. I think this is the second best card, not in that order, the second of the best cards. I think personally this might be the single best one. Looking at the affray, you just have to control an objective that's controlled by your opponent. I love this because if you're going first, you don't give up that early tactic, right? A lot of other battle plans will maybe you'll have to give up an early tactic, and then your opponent, can easily get underdog. This one, if you're going first top of 1, there's no way to do this realistically, right? You're just scoring objectives normally. You're not going to score your tactic, which is great because in 2, 3, 4, you're going to score this at some point. The strike is to have every objective in enemy territory. Now that one can certainly be difficult for most armies and some battle plans. But like we were saying with Master of the Paths, the right thing to do for most armies is to move forward to engage the Stormcast army. And usually that means they're going to be holding back smaller units to protect their objectives. If they're trying to deny the strike, they might have like a support hero sitting back on an objective. And then, hey, guess what? You can combo this strike with the Affray from Master of the Paths and take the objective, get all the objectives in enemy territory that way and kill a small support hero. Like, it just happens to be the play pattern fits perfectly here. And then the domination, I will say this is certainly a much harder domination than Master of the Paths. Controlling every objective can be very difficult. Sometimes it's easy, right? Sometimes just the way the battle flows, you've picked up, you're ahead by 1, and then you can make a big play and you can take 2 objectives in 1 turn. Other times there's battle plans with 6, and then they've got like a huge brick unit sitting on one of them, and you're just not going to do this unless you completely wipe your opponent out. So this is definitely a harder domination. But the Affray and the Strike are so good, and the domination is definitely achievable, especially with Stormcast. We have so many teleports. Every unit in our army can suddenly just be an objective grabber. All the support heroes in the back have that extra utility, which is why we're giving Stormreach Portal the S tier in our Battlezone review. Like, it makes tactics like this way easier. So the domination for most armies, I think, would be like a 5-star difficulty. For Stormcast, it feels more like a 4, maybe even a 3.5, honestly.
The thing I like the most about this card is that the tactics flow into each other very well, more so than others. If you score Affray, you are in a very good position to score Strike as well.
And then that rolls into the domination, right? If you have every objective in enemy territory, you're probably going to get every objective.
Yeah, the only problem I can see with this for Stormcast specifically, which is why I would consider it a 4-star, maybe 5-star in some lists, is it's very list dependent. If you're not running MSU and you're running a lot of reinforced units, some battle plans have so many objectives that it's very possible that by battle round 3-4, you just don't have enough units. You have enough to win the game probably, but not enough to control every tactic, every objective.
Would you guys consider running more control score based stuff to help with this tactic? Things like Vandus or Knight Vexillor or the Lord Terminos, things that buff control specifically?
I would run them not to score this card, but to deny this card. Vexillor denying this card is just very good. You can have relatively small units on an objective, have Vexillor giving them +3 control, and it becomes much harder for your opponent to take an objective and score Affray or Strike.
That's an interesting idea. Would you ever consider running Staunch Defender then, just to make it really hard to score every... Like, the domination becomes really difficult if you have a Vexillor with Staunch Defender and the +5 control buff. Yeah.
If this becomes a very commonly used tactic, then that would be a really good combo. Staunch Defender, maybe even Liberators would see some play. Liberators, Staunch Defender, and Vexillor would make objectives really hard to turn.
Yeah, that might be... I mean, because that list could also go Scouting Force, because you've got all these Liberators. Gives them dual utility.
Yeah, a lot of infantry. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be... And once again, it's very dependent on how popular this card is, but since Stormcast have a very high representation and Stormcast can score this card fairly easily compared to other armies, I think it might see play, and it could affect how Liberators go up in the rankings when it comes to the battle scroll if this is very common.
I think a lot of people are going to run this card. As we're going to see with the other cards, there's like huge downsides. This card just flows well. It doesn't require killing anything. It doesn't require specific keywords and specific places. It's just control objectives. That's how you're going to play the game anyway. And I think this is going to be probably the most popular card.
Yeah, and in that world, I see a very real possibility of having like Envoy of the Heavens, a Knight Vexillor, and 10 Liberators, and giving them the 5-up ward and making an objective incredibly hard to shift.
I think that the most popular one, it will be at first, it will be Intercept and Recover, as we are going to talk about it later.
Aggressive armies just love that card.
And some armies can actually play with this card in a very funny way. Sons of Behemat can move objectives. So they can completely throw a game out of whack and throw your plans into the mud just by moving an objective. They don't have to kill anything. They just have to move the objective.
Yeah, because if let's say you kick there's one objective on life roots, and let's say you spend a couple turns kicking it out of your territory, your opponent can just never score strike.
Yeah, never.
So yeah, A tier. I think this is the best card. I think it is better than Master of the Paths, but it still doesn't feel like an S tier. The biggest downsides are, the domination requiring all objectives on the board at the same time. That can be tough, especially if you're trading properly and you're going into the end of the game and there's still like a big brick unit and you just can't shift it. You don't have the hammers left anymore. That's tough. And the other problem I have with it is that if you're going second in the round, sometimes if you want to keep up on primary score, you end up scoring this, incidentally. And I would rather have complete control over when I score a tactic in terms of primary score. I don't have to kill heroes to score objectives, like on Master of the Paths. On this one, if you want to keep up on primary, sometimes you have to score it, which is it kind of goes against the whole underdog control thing.
Yeah, this card, I think more than most, is very dependent on the battle plan. If there's a battle plan with only like 1 to 3 objectives, if you're already winning in battle round 3, like you're gonna get domination.
Yeah, with Stormcast we have the capacity to do a lot of damage and to reduce the number of units on the opponent quite significantly. So that is why this one is also good, because if they don't have enough units, it's easier for you to take the objectives, because you don't have to stand on every objective. You can just take one and have a lot of mobility and go and grab another one, because they are not going to be able to reach with the few units that you left. So most of the tactics, if you are winning, you are going to get the last one. But for us particularly, this one is good.
Yeah, we can get it even when it's not like a complete blowout game. If it's a close game, we can score the domination.
Yeah, and on a slight, I'll just slightly comment on this. I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but unstickying someone's objective can deny this tactic.
Oh, with the Banner of Sigmar?
With the Banner of Sigmar, yeah. Unstickying someone's objective can actually
the thing is, they'll know you have it, right? If it was a secret, like if it was a card in your hand that your opponent couldn't see, that could be sneaky and it could work. But because your opponent knows where the Banner of Sigmar is at all times, yeah, it's hard to make that work.
But then it becomes a deterrent, and it becomes forcing your opponent to play a certain way. If they want to kill that hero with the Banner of Sigmar, they have to go either way to do it, or if they want to just keep their guys on the objective, it also forces them to do that, instead of potentially moving out and scoring more objectives.
It would only deny the domination.
Yeah, I want to iterate. I do not think that it makes Banner of Sigmar S tier. I'm just saying it's a fun interaction that interacts with one card.
Let's take a look at Intercept and Recover. So when these first came out, there was kind of like a bit of a roller coaster on this card. It was like, oh, this is so easy. Everybody's going to use this, right? And then everyone's like, oh, this is like too easy. Everybody's going to just play around it. I think it's going to hit a middle ground, I think it's going to be one of the better ones, but not like, I think people will use Restless Energy and Intercept. I think that'll be a very common thing. So Intercept is very simple. All 3 stages are the same. It's get one of your treasures, and all of it is how you set up the treasure. So your opponent at the start of the game gets to pick 3 units on the battlefield and give them treasures. And when they kill those units, they score a tactic. And it doesn't matter when they kill them. So if they kill all 3 in one turn, over 3 turns they'll score all 3. It doesn't have to be killed in the same turn. And a huge rule that a lot of people seem to be missing is that if you take a double turn, your opponent just removes one of the treasures. And they'll usually remove the treasure that was, easiest for you to get, and you'll be stuck with hard treasures at the end. Like they'll have that block of 20-yard boys that I was talking about, or maybe a Catacross, or like a super tanky Star Drake with Praetors and Vexilor. Like they're going to make it really, really difficult for you to score this. So there's things I like about this one. You don't have to put units in specific places. The units can be destroyed through any ability, spell, shooting, charge mortals, anything. And as long as you're destroying stuff, you can usually, I will say you'll always get at least 1. It's like 95% certainty you'll get 1. Then I'd say it's about a 80% certainty you'll get 2. And then it feels like a coin flip if you're going to get all 3. Like sometimes you'll play against Gargants, and if you're playing Stormcast against Gargants, you're going to get all 3. And then other times you're playing against like Khorne, and they're hiding their heroes in the back, and it's in a garrison. It's like, okay, so you have to dedicate multiple turns of combat or multiple units in a single combat in order to destroy it. It just, getting all 3 is really, really, really tough. And for me, that knocks it down a whole tier because the goal, remember, with these rankings is get all 3 off this card every single game. Like, that's the goal. And I think it's just really hard to do that.
Yeah, it's not a bad option for Stormcast, but yes, it's hard to score all of them because you are also forced to never take the double. And sometimes with Stormcast, you are in a very good position, and if you take the double, you win the game. You wipe the other opponent's army, and you are sacrificing immediately these 5 points.
Yeah, and it could be, those could be the 5 points that cost you the game, right? Like, even a double turn, double turns don't always wipe enemy armies out, but they might remove critical units here and there. Like, they'll cripple an opponent. But if your opponent can get 30 victory points off battle tactics, you can only get 25. Well, that could be multiple turns of primary scoring, because it could be the score more objective, which is usually worth 2 points a turn. That's 3 turns of that happening in order to make up the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this battle tactic card, what it suffers with the most is how much control you give to your opponent, which is something you usually don't want to do on both a tactical and strategical point of view. I think this will incentivize some lists, especially with Stormcast, of just making really hard to kill bricks, like 6 Reclusians and a Lord Terminos with Quicksilver Draft will be very difficult to move if you give them the Ghyran treasures. Or even just putting Concussors and a Lord Selson on Drakov. But I think... Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. I got distracted. But one thing that I think is kind of a tricky thing is I both agree and don't agree with the difficulty rating of this card that we have on the slides. Because the difficulty rating just completely changes depending on your opponent's list. If your opponent has a list and they don't really have any good targets for Ghyran treasures and it makes it really easy for you to score, all 3 of these are 1 to 2 stars. But if they have a list with a lot of very tanky, hard to kill things, like even just like 6 Skull Crushers, that's 30 wounds on a 2-up save that you have to chew through just to get 1 battle tactic.
Yeah.
It can just vary so much just based on your opponent's list.
Another thing to consider is that when I play against this, I'll stick it on stuff that I don't care if it dies. Right? I will give my opponent 15 victory points, but they have to go kill stuff like Liberators or a Knight Arcanum in the back. They kill these units that don't really matter to me. Right? So imagine you're playing a scenario where you've got like 3 big hammer units and then 3 chaff units. And it might make sense to put the treasures on your big units because, they might not die. Then my opponent doesn't get it. But the thing is, if our opponents are spending time killing the chaff units, our hammer units kill their whole army. So
yeah, you can.
Just because they get the tactic doesn't mean it's a good decision to get the tactic, right? So that's another problem I have with this card.
Yeah, which goes into giving all that control to your opponent.
Yep. You can as we were talking about the other one, the hero, the killing the hero. You can counterplay these tactics and force your opponent to make the wrong decisions, like going after the Knight Arcanum, which is sitting back on a corner where there are no objectives anywhere. And if he goes and brings a unit there, that unit is just useless for the rest of the game.
Oh yeah, at least 2 rounds, it's just done.
So you can actually do this kind of funky stuff as a counterplay to this card, and that is why I also think that it is not the best one.
But it's good. Like, honestly, Stormcast in particular having a pretty easy time finding stuff because we have teleport shooting, we have reserves, we have stuff like prosecutors and storm drakes with the rampage. We've got a lot of mobility. We can get to places where other armies can't get to. So we can kill stuff. It's just the fact that you got to get all 3. And you have to do it without a double turn. And that can be very tough.
Yeah, and we have the benefit of...
We might be the army that poses the bigger threat to particular units. Because with the teleports, the shooting, the high mobility, people have to learn to screen super well against us. And that is why this tactic is good for us.
Yeah, and because of the units that we have available to us, we have the capacity to go after a wasteful unit that they keep in the backline intentionally for us to score this tactic with a big, like a Knight Arcanum in the middle of nowhere. And we have the mobility with Storm Drakes and with Prosecutors to go back there, kill it, and then still be in the game. Not like something like Iron Jaws, who if they throw something in the backline, Now they have 3 turns with their 4-inch movement to try to get back into the game.
I would even give up treasures to get strategic advantages, right? If I give up one of my treasures to a Knight Relictor, I'm going to recycle him. I'm just going to throw him in a corner. My opponent's going to feel really smart. Like, oh, look at this. Free Relictor pickup. He's the guy reducing my wars, and he's got a treasure. What a great idea. I'll definitely run into the corner and kill him. Oh no, my unit's stuck in the corner for rounds 2, 3, 4. I've lost the game.
Yeah, I can even see some units, maybe not, in spam, but bringing really, really cheap units like Aether Wings or Gryph-hounds, and just because of their mobility and how they can just annoy the enemy, just throwing them in a spot that is very, very unstrategic for your opponent to go to.
Yeah, it's all about control over this effect. The fact that your opponent gets the control keeps it from being one of the best cards.
Yeah.
And spoiler alerts, we don't have S cards, so
Nope.
This is not a bad card.
Not a single S tier card. I don't think any of them are that good. Our standards are too high. Okay, so this I think is the worst card. Maybe it's just the worst for Stormcast. It could be better for other armies, but I definitely think for Stormcast this is the worst one, and I will explain why. But first I'll talk about each effect. The Affray requires you to control more objectives. Okay, that's great. Unironically, that's fantastic. Very easy to score. It kind of has the opposite problem of what Restless Paths had, where you could reasonably hold off scoring at top of 1. This one, if you're forced to go first, you're probably going to score it, right? Because you want to score more, you want to max your primary, and then this really maxes your primary. Like, it makes it very easy for your opponent to control underdog, and I don't like that. I don't like that aspect of it. But scoring this rounds 2 or 3, very easy. I think this might be the easiest on some battle plans. Might be the easiest one. The strike requires. This is where it all falls apart for me. All right, yeah. The strike requires you to be the underdog, which is not in your control, because, even if you build a 1-drop list, you might be facing somebody else that has a 1-drop list, and they might win the tie on the dice roll, and they might force you to go first, and then they control the underdog, and then you just never score 10 victory points, and it's like, okay, well, that's terrible already. The second part is you have to also fight with half the units on the battlefield, and fighting requires usually charging, and this is where it really falls apart for Stormcast. We've got things like Knight Judicators, Long Strikes, Arcanums, Relictors, Storm Coven. We've got all these units that don't want to get into melee. And we don't usually run that many melee units. We'll run maybe Questers, Prosecutors, Star Drake. We'll run somewhere between 3 and 4 melee hammer units. And then the other half of our army is shooting and support. And getting that second condition is really tough. That means you're charging your shooting units into combat. You have to survive that combat too. I mean, I guess if you die, you score the tactic, but yeah, you really don't want to be doing that second part. And then the domination actually gets a little bit easier for Stormcast. This is just Reclaim the Realms, but easier because there's no restriction on your opponent being able to redeploy into it. But you have to have a unit in each battlefield quarter, which is very easy for Stormcast. We can just teleport units for days. We can just walk stuff into range. This is very easy. And then there's that second one. There's no enemy units contesting objectives you control. That part's hard as well, because sometimes you will be out controlling your opponent. Sometimes you've got like a Vandus Hammerhand with Quester Soulsworn, and you're not killing your opponent. You're just taking their objective by walking onto it, and that actually gets tough. So really mixed bag here with Wrathful Cycles. The strike is it is definitely the hardest strike to do for multiple reasons, not just for Stormcast, but I think for everyone. It is cool that it's like a double turn deterrent, because if your opponent ever takes a double turn, you get underdog for the rest of the game. So your opponent, if they're running something like Intercept and Recover, and you have Wrathful Cycles, it's like, well, if your opponent takes a double, you're just going to win almost definitely, because there's just no tactics left for your opponent to do, and you can score all yours. So it's interesting, but it's way too hard to. If there was some way to get underdog that didn't require dice rolls, I would look upon this much more favorably. But it's just way too hard of a strike.
Yeah, I think it's just the opposite situation of Synergy. It might be a problem inherently with the design of the battle tactic card. The tactics don't seem to flow into each other. The Affray encourages you to score high, have more objectives than your opponent. But then the strike does not encourage that. It wants you to score low, to be underdog. And then domination, it wants you to go high again. So I get that it fits the theme of like cycles, but in terms of mechanical gameplay, it just doesn't work too well.
Maybe it's trying to, you build a list to go first, and then you hope your opponent doubles you, right? Because that way you have the easy affray, and then your opponent will definitely be underdog. So they're like, oh, might as well, take the double. Because no, that wouldn't make sense. No, every time I think about this, I always think, oh, this, I just haven't thought about it in a certain way, and it's like, no, it's just bad. It's just so hard to make this work.
Yeah, it's terrible. In order to do that, you will have to create a list which is you put yourself into a position which is juicy enough for the opponent to take the double and hit you super hard, but not lose the game. So that is super hard to achieve.
Yeah, and even if you build a list that wants to be doubled or that can handle the double, your opponent just might not double you.
Exactly.
And especially if Intercept and Recover is going to be very popular, they won't want to double you anyway. Even if you have a bad list that can't be double turned, they just won't because they don't want to lose out on scoring.
Yeah. Terrible card. I think this is easily the worst battle tactic card.
But it was designed, very fluffy with lore, Paul. You were saying more of that 40k stuff. It's a cycle.
It sure is. Cycle of garbage.
And I think it's the worst for all armies, not only us. So I don't think that we are going to be seeing this one much.
Let's take a look at Scouting Force. Scouting Force is very cool. It was the first one previewed by Warhammer Community, and a lot of people kind of look at it as like, oh yeah, this is going to be so good. But the more you think about it, the less good it seems for Stormcast in particular. So how Scouting Force works is all of your non-hero infantry and non-hero cavalry gain the Scouting Force if they're on the battlefield, which means no reserves. So right away, that's like, okay, we're using Knight Judicators. They're neither infantry, they're a hero, so they can't get that. We're using Star Drakes, we're using Storm Drake Guard, we're using a lot of units that just can't get the scouting word to begin with. And then many of the units that would get it want to go in reserve. Things like Long Strikes, things like Tempesters, there are a lot of units that we want to put in reserve, and now suddenly you have to deploy them on the table. So, 2 strikes right away, 2 bad things that make it hard for Stormcast. The Affray requires you to have 3 or more friendly units wholly outside friendly territory, and depending on the battle plan, this is the easiest or the hardest. Because if you're on one of those battle plans like Hammer and Anvil, where it's just split across the middle, that is a massive overcommitment. Like, you're just throwing units away. Your opponent gets free pickups without having to leave their base. It's just terrible, and it gives them a bridge to charge into you too. So this is actually one of the harder affrays, I think. Not mechanically. It might be, maybe you're playing on Roiling Roots and you just walk a couple models up and your opponent's out of charge range. So the variance in this is way too high for me to consider it a good one. The strike requires you to control 3 or more objectives or terrain features in enemy territory, which that's the hard part. Sometimes there's only one objective in enemy territory. These objectives don't have to be wholly within, and same with the terrain, but again, these 3 units have to go out and they have to contest this. Now, these units could be set up, so that doesn't have any kind of restriction on teleports. So you could, Quester Soulsworn can teleport, a unit can use the portal. You can do this. It's not impossible, but the fact that you have to first send 3 units outside your territory and then get that deep into enemy territory on the battle plans where you have an easy score, like there's a big neutral territory in the middle. The affray is very easy, and the strike becomes very hard because you have to go really deep. But then on the ones where you have split down the middle, the affray gets harder, and then the strike as well. I'm already that far up. I might as well, it's not that much of a push from there. So I kind of lump these 2 together. Like they can be very easy or they can be really hard. Either way, they just seem like a massive overcommitment to me. And then the domination, again, one of the easier dominations, you have to control a terrain feature that is wholly within enemy territory and more than 6 inches from friendly territory. So if you're playing against an army that has terrain set up, that usually qualifies if they have faction terrain like that. But otherwise, a lot of battle plans only have 1 or 2 pieces of terrain that actually will fit this. And that, of course, depends on how big your terrain is. There's a lot of variance. If you're at a tournament and they have some big, 12-inch wide castle that they're using as a piece of terrain, that suddenly becomes 6 inches and with friendly territory. Yeah, that can be tough. So I don't love this card. There's a lot of restrictions. That said, let's say you want to run a list that's like a Star Drake and Storm Drakes, and your hammer units are not going to be scouts because when you pick Scouting Force, your opponent is heavily incentivized to kill your scouts. So what if we pick units to be scouts that we don't care about that much, right? So if our opponent is killing our scouts, we win based on tempo. And if our opponent doesn't kill our scouts, then we get free battle tactics. So there's certainly some play here. It's not an impossible thing to do. It just requires a very specific list to take advantage of it.
The problem with this one is that we don't have the right units for this. We don't have disposable cavalry, and we don't have the disposable infantry that we have. They are not moving very much, so they are gonna have a hard time getting all the other way of the board and trying to reach the terrain pieces and the objectives on the opponent's territory. So I don't think we are built for this tactic. And also, if you cannot put those units into reserve, so that also limits us a lot, because many of our units, as you said, like the shooting units, which are long strikes and stuff, they want to be in reserve because they don't have the mobility to go and be in the right place at the right time. So this is a hard one for us. It's not that bad for other armies, but for us, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, the main thing I think that Stormcast struggle with is kind of like the condition that scout units cannot battle tactics if they are in combat, because we do have very fast cavalry. I mean, Vanguard Paladors are incredibly fast because they have run charge, they have 4 stages of movement, but keeping them out of combat for 3 battle rounds is losing a lot of value, especially with how expensive they are in points. And our infantry just simply isn't fast enough. Now, one thing I think is going to be really important is for Stormcast players to learn how to play against this battle tactic card, because some armies that are very popular in tournaments, that if you play in tournaments you will see, like Flesh Eater Courts, can score this very easily, or have a very easy time. They have a lot of cheap infantry, a lot of fast, cheap infantry, that even when they die can just be brought back somewhere else on the board to score the tactics. So I think we're going to have to really try hard to counter this card, maybe using counter charges, or placing our units in deployment in very smart spots so that they can't get a fray turn 1. It's just going to be more playing against it than playing with it.
It's not bad. It's not as bad as Wrathful Cycles. It's not as good as the good ones that we talked about, those first 3. It's very list dependent. I think you could definitely build a list. Questers, Liberators, and then your hammer units become stuff that your opponent's not incentivized to kill. So there's definitely some play here, but it's niche. Definitely niche.
Yeah, or you could go just MSAU with Paladors.
Yeah, 12 Stormstrike Paladors, MSU. What kind of crazy person would build and paint that list and have it ready for next weekend? No way.
Well, I'm curious though, how would you guys play against this battle tactic card? And playing against it while still trying to win and score yourselves.
I love it if people play this, because that means they're moving units up out of their territory, and that's what I want to happen. The worst thing against Stormcast is when people play in a castle, like they just sit back. Any army that can do that is going to generally do well against Stormcast, because what Stormcast want to do is hit things at the right angle at the right time. Like, we want to have the safest possible trades. That's why recycling is so good for us, because we can take a trade in a bad situation, in a bad spot, and then just get out of it. Like, we turn a bad trade into a good trade. When people are playing Scouting Force and they're moving units into our territory, I love it. I love everything about it. That means I get to charge on my terms. I get to keep everything relatively close by. I get more chances, like slower units can get in. Things like Quester Soulsworn can be aggressive chargers instead of usually just getting charged. Yeah, love it. It's the best one for me to play against.
I mean, I'd be curious, because I won my first game in this new season using this as Flesh Eater Courts against a fairly competitive Stormcast player who was using, all the goods. And it went really well for me.
My primary concern is the primary score, right? If I can try to deny tactics, great, but I'm going to try to win the game based on having more primaries and then scoring my battle tactics, and then trying to deny my opponents is like a third string goal.
Yeah, the last part, it's the last part of the strategy, it's denying the battle tactics from the opponent, because as we said, we can do tactical stuff based on the battle tactics that they pick to win the game, to hit them super hard. Particularly with Stormcast, this is a very nice way to play. So if they have chaff units that can go and do this, maybe you have a hard time. But usually the scouts are good units. We are seeing more and more big blocks of infantry that go in the middle. So they want to try to push forward. So as Paul said, I think this is a good tactic for us to play against. We will have to know more about the game that you had as you were
Yeah,
playing.
well, I haven't played with this card on every single battle plan, but on most of the ones I did, I was able to score primary while scoring these tactics. It was more just, having more units than my opponent could deal with. Like, yeah, I'm running into your territory, but I'm running into your territory with 6, 7 different infantry units. And if you want to stop 3 of them from getting the affray tactic, you have to spread yourself real thin. And flesh eaters love when you spread yourself thin because that's where they thrive.
Exactly. That's why I would just stay together. I would focus on the primary and not focus on denying the scouting force.
Yeah, I have tried this one with Lumineth with an infantry heavy list, and it was hard. And I even had a couple of Wind Chargers units, and it was hard because I was playing against, for example, Crew Boys, and they have a very big amount of units. So getting to their territory was super hard, super hard. So
yeah, I think
it's hard to play the tactic, even if you have the right tools in many against many matches, and it also depends on the battle plans, as you said. But in this case, it was a very big battle plan and a very big territories. So, and even then, it was hard. So it depends a lot of how is the game developing. If we are fighting with a lot of stuff in the middle, and we are trying to push forward through the middle, it can get really tough to accomplish.
Yeah, I think I might be just a little biased because I think it's a very good card, but I have only played it to great effect with one army. But it worked very well with that army. I'd be curious to maybe one day play against Paul and Eduardo.
Yeah, sure.
Playing with
2
this
against
card.
1 doesn't seem fair.
No, I'll go down to Mexico and then I'll go play Paul later.
One at a time.
All right, let's take a look at the last one. So I was pretty close to writing this one off to be as bad as Wrathful Cycles, but it's honestly not that bad. The affray is mechanically very simple. You just have to put 2 units in the middle of the battlefield, so it sees the center. And I've always had very negative thoughts about Seize the Center. I've always viewed Seize the Center as a trap. To put units into the middle of the board is to usually just give them away. But there's other considerations now. We can recycle units, so we could have 2 units in the middle of the battlefield, and then we can just recycle one of them away. We also don't have to score this round 1 or 2. We could score this round 3. Yeah, so it's not bad. You can also not score it. Like even if there's a center objective and you want to be on the objective, but you don't want to score the tactic, scoring this tactic is completely in your control, right? Like unless your opponent super aggressively moves up into the middle of the board with all of their army, in which case, all right, yeah, I'll just pick it apart on the sides, take my time, and then score this in round 3, and then go into the strike and the domination. Speaking of which, the strike is to retreat with 2 units, and then charge with 2 units, and these have to be 4 different units total, and one of the units that charge has to be charging one of the units that you retreated away from. So that means you can't kill it with shooting, you can't kill it with charge mortal wounds, because you have to actually finish that charge. I guess you could use charge mortal wounds. They happen after, so they're not required. But the point is you can't kill it with spells, you can't kill it with shooting and things like that. So there's a lot of reasons I don't like this strike. The main one, though, is that Stormcast don't want to be retreating. Even Vanguard Paladors, ideally, they still don't want to be retreating. What they want to be doing is charging. And most of our units don't have the ability to shoot and charge or retreat and charge. Sorry, don't have the ability to retreat and shoot or retreat and charge. And that's a huge problem. Prosecutors, Storm Drakes, I guess not Storm Drakes, they shoot in combat. Tempestors, lots of units want to be able to shoot the turn before charging it. How we typically deal with being stuck in combat is we teleport out. We translocate or we use the Soulscream Bridge. We want to just teleport out of combat, and that way we still get some value. We don't want to be retreating units. And then having to charge 2 other units means you're not killing those units with shooting. So I guess that maybe that's not always going to be the case. Maybe you finish them off in melee. But the point is it restricts your options, and I don't like things that restrict my options. I want to have as many tools available as possible. So the strike is very hard, I think. Even if you're using, 3-up save chaff, sometimes they survive, and then you can do retreats and things like that. But taking DC mortal wounds when you retreat is brutal. Like, the Liberators losing a whole model when they retreat is awful. And
I always roll a 3 with Night Retreat with my Palador, and he dies. I
Yes.
always lose a Palador when they retreat.
yes, so
Always.
even though you can retreat and charge, doesn't mean you want to.
No.
And the domination is no enemy units in friendly territory and no enemy units in neutral territory. So that is, on some battle plans, very difficult. On other battle plans, still difficult, but not as difficult. So I'm giving that one a 4-star. So overall, I don't think it's that bad. I think I would play this before I play Scouting Force. I know that I said that doesn't sound right, because I would make a list that's tailored to score Scouting Force. Right? This one is it's kind of just competing with Master of the Paths and Relentless Energy, and I think I'd rather always do those. Right? Like the use case for this is, you can't really build a list tailored to it. I guess you could run some Vanguard so that they can retreat and shoot, but it's still not great. You don't want to be doing
It's only one unit. And it's also only one unit.
Yeah. The other unit, I don't know. Griffhounds or something.
I could see this one being used by, I don't know, a heavy infantry chaff list, like a lot of Liberators or something, where you can retreat them, one of them might die, and you can charge with another unit and do something like that. But right now we are not playing those type of units. Maybe someone will get a nice list with this.
Like every Nighthaunt army is going to run this.
Yeah, this will be. I mean, this would be fairly easy for Nighthaunt.
No,
Yeah.
the one that I like with Nighthaunt is the one that you have to control the terrain pieces, because you bring your terrain pieces with you.
Yeah, but you can pick 2 tactic cards, Eduardo. So you can bring
Yeah.
both. You can just do both.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. Yeah, I think at least
don't-
Nighthaunt will have a much easier time with the strike.
I don't know, because you can only retreat with one unit as well, and you also need to hit, because in your turn is when you do damage.
Yes,
know,
but
I don't know.
they have the ward to survive the retreat potentially.
But if you
You
retreat
have
with
large
your hammer
infantry
unit,
blobs, so losing 1 to 2 models isn't the biggest deal in the world.
What-
Like, I think the problem with this card is that it's just not tuned to how Stormcast play. It's other armies can probably use it very well, but for how we play, we can do it. I mean, we can retreat and charge other units. We just don't want to. So to score 5 points and sacrifice other parts of the game just isn't really worth it.
and we bring not many units also, so making sure that you fight with so many, it's also hard.
Yeah, you have to
So-
survive the enemy combat phase, usually, to get this. Because if you're doubling, you can't score it.
And this also goes into what Paul was saying before. We don't bring that many melee units, melee hammers in a list. So we bring at most like 4-ish, like maybe 5. So that would mean every single unit we have for melee combat has to be, 2 of them have to be in combat, and 2 of them have to be out of combat. So it's hard to set up.
And near enough or fast enough that they can still charge in. So like it's
Exactly.
it's not
so
impossible.
There's no like you can't.
You could definitely do this with
It's not
questers and
impossible.
storm strikes and things like that, but like you don't want to be retreating questers. You want to be fighting with them.
Yeah, it is possible. Like, yeah, you can make the list, but it really just comes down to what I said before. It's like you can do it. It's not how Stormcast want to play, though. So if you really want to use this card, if you really like this card for some reason, you're gonna have to change your brain chemistry a little bit to play
You have to
Stormcast in
build
a completely
for it.
different way.
You have to build
will
for
have
it,
to
and the
build that
payoff doesn't seem worthwhile. Scouting Force seems like a better payoff.
Yeah, it's not like it has more payoff than other tactic cards. So you don't have to build different for other tactic cards. So it just seems like a lot of effort for the same result.
Yeah, there's also some like Stormcast in particular are very well suited to play against this card, right? Because in order to retreat, you need an enemy unit in combat with you in the movement phase. And what if you have a hero phase teleport? Like if you're Ideneth or Stormcast or a whole number of armies, they can just pull a unit out before you have a chance to actually use a retreat ability, because you can't retreat unless you're in combat. And another thing, so that can deny the strike, and then denying the domination, you could just translocate that unit into enemy territory, deep in where they can't get you.
Yeah, that is also another thing that I don't like about this card. There are many, many, many more teleports nowadays and shenanigans to get you out of combat, a unit. So they can deny this one for you, especially if you're running a small number of units like we are. So that is what I don't love it.
Yeah, even armies that can do this card very well and that are kind of like built to do it very well still probably don't want to.
Yeah, exactly.
So even if like Nighthaunt and Flesh Eaters can do it and they can do it very easily, there's no reason to. It kind of just goes against the way they play in the end.
Yeah,
Unless they have just like 3 Morbeg Knights, and then that's just how they play.
The Morbeg Knight list would definitely do this.
Yeah, 18 Morbeg Knights are doing this every time.
Yeah, if Nighthaunt retained the last Deathstalker sub-faction, they would do it easily. But now you have to bring that sub-faction, and you will only retreat 1 unit. And now we are running the most popular sub-faction, which is very strong right now. It's the one for the Black Coach, because the Black Coach is very good, and it's giving a 5 of war to everything around there. So you are not going to be able to retreat and charge. And if you don't charge in your turn, you don't do damage. And if you don't do damage, you lose the game. So it's a very bad tactic. I don't like it in any... I don't know, just in a very, very heavy chaff army, I could see it.
Or in like an 18 Morbeg Knight army.
Yeah, or something that can all the units can retreat and charge. Yes, I could see it.
Armies with good recursion, but in that case, it could definitely do it.
Yeah, in that case, it's not even like an army dependent thing; it's a list dependent thing. Because like some Flesh Eater lists can do this very well, not all of them. So it's not even like one army can do this very well; it's one list can do it very well.
You can do things like Bloodletters, return models at the end of the hero phase. Nighthaunt can be near the terrain and return models, so you can mitigate the losses from this. You can use wards to mitigate the damage from retreat. You can also just, with Khorne, you can retreat and then murderlust back in. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. So, you don't
have to use your full movement to retreat.
You can do crazy stuff like retreating and staying in combat with a manifestation or a terrain piece and then piling in and getting back into combat. But, yeah, it's still not good enough for me.
Yeah, so, okay, I do need to point out, the retreat ability does not require moving your unit. You can use a retreat ability and stay still. That is a perfectly legal thing to do in this game.
For now.
Use D3 mortals.
I don't think that's going to change. But there is discussion happening right now. There's a lot of tournaments that are ruling it that you have to actually move when you retreat in order to trigger this card. And there is actually some official Warhammer tournaments, like Games Workshop sponsored ones, that are ruling it that way. So I expect that change to happen officially at some point. So that's how we are ranking this card. We're assuming you actually have to move when you do that, because you can't just retreat, stay put, and keep fighting.
Have they specified how much you have to move?
You just have to move. And if you move, you can't end in combat. So you have to move at least 3.
Outside of combat.
Yeah. Because as it stands now, if there's a tournament that's not ruling that way, like, yeah, for something with really heavy infantry, you can just retreat, not move, take the damage, like lose like what, 1 to 3 clan rats, 1 to 3 ghouls, bring them back immediately in the movement phase, and then just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and stop readable too, which is huge.
Yeah, although in that case, it is harder to get the second condition of that strike, where one of the units charging has to get into combat with one of the units that retreated. So if you're running 40 clan rats, 40 crypticals, there's probably not going to be space around that unit to end the charge near them. Because with those units, you're surrounding. You're not just getting into like a nice, neat little line.
Yeah. Fly units are ideal for this, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Or 18 Morbeg Knights. That's all I'm hearing.
This is the tactic for your Morbeg Knight, Santi.
I don't even have 18 Morbeg Knights. I don't have that money.
Oh. that is the idea of Games Workshop, for you to buy them.
Yeah, I already have 18 Cryptors. I don't need 18 Morbeg Knights.
All I'm hearing is that more people should hit subscribe and join us on Patreon so we can buy Santi 18 Morbeg Knights.
Exactly what I'm hearing, yeah.
All said it, Santi. Now he will have to buy them for you.
Yep, that's true.
He just compromised.
I'm expecting in the next 3 months to receive, I already have 6, so to receive 12 Morbeg Knights in the mail.
I have the editor's privilege. I can just chop this whole conversation out.
There are witnesses.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thank you to all our viewers and especially our Patreon supporters. If you guys think we missed anything with these battle tactics, or you have some hidden combo that we didn't think about, we didn't mention in the video, feel free to drop it down below on the comment section. The battle tactics are a huge change. We definitely want to have a big conversation about this. The point of this podcast isn't necessarily just to be informative, but it's also to foster a conversation, because we kind of use this as a way to think about the game and analyze it, and we want to keep hearing from you guys too, because we're not an orthodoxy here. Just because we said it on the podcast doesn't mean it's the only thing that's true. We want to hear your guys' opinion too.
One thing that I do want to throw out there, we didn't go too much into it in this video, but there is more to talk about battle tactics, specifically synergies between certain cards, which we could maybe go and talk about in another video or in a live stream or even just in the Discord. There are many cards that work very well together and some that do not work well together, and you should not pick them both if you're playing a game.
Yep. If there's enough interest, maybe in a few months we revisit the topic and we look at combos together. But it's still too fresh. My brain can't process that much information that quickly, unfortunately.
And it just adds also, like 3 layers of complexity.
Yeah, and also the relationship between the battle tactics and the battle plans. That's going to be a very huge one, because if you're going to a tournament, usually you know which battle plans you are going to play. And some of these battle tactics can be very bad at some battle plans. So that is also an interesting thing that we can discuss when we discuss the battle plans.
Some cards that we called A tier might be C tier or D tier in a certain battle plan. So I think overall, what I'm seeing with like all these talks we've been having and all these videos is that this new season of Age of Sigmar 4.0 is considerably more complicated competitively than last season.
Yes, and I don't think that's a good thing.
I don't think so either.
But that's a discussion for another time, huh?
Yep. Good note to leave off on.
Yep. If you just want to talk about Age of Sigmar, join the Stormkeep Discord server. I spend way too much time on it. So everyone does, really. Like we're wasting our lives on there, man.
Chronically online.
It's good though. Well, if you guys want to get the brain rot and join us on the Stormkeep Discord server, we have a very active community. We have a lot of painting contests going on. I think right now we have painting cavalry. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, we're painting cavalry units this month in July. So if you have a cool cavalry unit, it can be any cavalry. It doesn't have to be Stormcast. If you got like some Agrodons or some Dawn Riders or something, you can toss them in there too, and you have a chance to win fabulous prizes. We also do list building for all armies, not just Stormcast. We have a big community that's talking about chaos and death and destruction and other Order armies as well. And consider supporting the gang by becoming a member on YouTube or joining us on patreon.com/Stormkeep. For $5 a month, you get early access to all our videos, access to all the slides that we use in these videos, and the best buyer's remorse that money can buy. I guarantee the best buyer's remorse. So from everybody at the Stormkeep, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
One of those soft buys. Come on.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye, everybody.
I will
Go
be
to
laughing.
the lore section of the Discord. I hang out there.
That's better.